How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning in here at odds.com. The Diehard MMA podcast is streamed exclusively here on odds.com. And if you want to watch the replay, click the link below. Head on over to odds.com to check it out. Next up, we've got a very interesting fight, in my opinion, between Cub Swanson and Daniel Pineda. So Cub, we all know Cub. He's been around featherweight forever, 26-11. Daniel Pineda is a guy who has been, he was out of the UFC. He came into the UFC, got his ass kicked, left the UFC, did okay on the regional scene, popped for performance-enhancing drugs, and then he came back and destroyed everybody's darling, mine included, Herbert Burns. So he's coming in here with a decent bit of hype, and he's a finisher. Daniel Pineda, over 27 wins, has never won a decision. He's got a 100% finish rate. This dude is nuts. He is the definition of a kill or be killed fighter. Now, Cub's been doing some work with TJ Dillashaw, which in my book is a big thumbs up. I think TJ's still got it. That's a very good company to have leading up to this fight. He's got sharp boxing. He moves and cuts angles extremely well. He's willing to stand in the pocket and trade when he needs to. Nice head movement. He's got a good little head kick that he snaps up there and catches people with. And he's always working the body and the legs, which just banks for later rounds. I love when fighters do that. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he's had a problem with submissions. His opponents in the UFC have been able to take him down and submit him, and it seems like that's a big, big hole in his game that they're almost setting Daniel Pineda up for the win here because this guy is sick on the ground. But I want to read off the names that Cub Swanson has lost to by submission. Renato Moicano, who's a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Brian Ortega, who's a one-time title challenger and going to be next-time title challenger. Max Holloway, Frankie Edgar. I mean, Ricardo Lamas, all the way back in 2011. The guys that are submitting Cub Swanson are the cream of the crop, the absolute pinnacle of the division. I don't know if Daniel Pineda belongs in that category, and I think he might be getting a bit too much rub coming off of that derailing of the hype train Herbert Burns after Herbert Burns had a god-awful, horrific weight cut. Daniel Pineda sitting about minus 150 right now, plus 125 on Cub Swanson. Matt, I think there might be some value on the dog here. What do you think?
I'm with you on the dog, and while you mentioned all the names that he lost to, let's talk about some of the guys that Cub Swanson has beat in the UFC. Charles Oliveira, Jeremy Stevens, Dustin Poirier, Dennis Seaver. I mean, this guy has one of the most impressive resumes for a guy that's never won a title ever in MMA. And at the end of the day, I don't know that he destroyed Gilbert Burns, Daniel Pineda. So if you watch that fight, Burns had his shot to put Pineda away and completely gassed out. I mean, he had nothing in the tank from that weight cut, or he would have finished Pineda himself. And Pineda has 13 losses for a reason, because he's a wild man and he tends to leave himself open. I just think that Cub Swanson, while he's on the wrong side of the mountain, he's 1-4 in his last 5. And granted, those 4 losses were against some of the names you mentioned, as well as Hurricane Shane Burgos, who's also very tough.
He went to a split with Shane.
Yes. And is coming off a win now in his last fight, Cub. And you always worry, okay, this is a guy who's, basically on the wrong side. Is he even training hard anymore? But came out and put together a pretty solid performance against Kron Gracie in his last to reassure me that he's still training hard, still in the gym. I just think these guys are light years apart in terms of experience, ability, all-around skill set. Daniel Pineda is going to be really dangerous in this fight for about a round. And if he doesn't get that early sub and early takedown, I just think Cub Swanson's striking is really going to start to take over this fight. I think if the fight goes 3 rounds, Cub definitely wins round 2 and 3. And there's a possibility he finishes Pineda, because Pineda goes like a buzzsaw trying to get that takedown early. But if he doesn't get it, he will empty the tank trying to get it. This is a guy who's used to losing when he doesn't get a finish. And I think if he doesn't get that finish early, look for Cub Swanson. And for all of you who have availability to bet in play, and this is one of the areas I've really done amazingly well this year, because in-play betting in UFC is still fairly new in terms of a lot of books offering it being widely available. But a lot of books are at least starting to offer it between rounds, especially on the pay-per-view cards. there is a pretty good chance that Pineda will get a takedown sometime in round one because he relentlessly pursues them. I mean, he will empty the tank trying to get one. And it may end up being 10-9 Pineda after one. If it is, go ahead and take a shot on Cub Swanson in play because Pineda does not have a gas tank. He's 35 years old as well. This isn't a young up-and-coming prospect against Cub Swanson. They're 35 and 37, and you could say that Pineda has had a lot of wars, a lot of fights, and steroid use, which we all know what happens to some of these guys after performance-enhancing drug use. So these guys are basically the same age in terms of fighting age. I think there's a lot of value on Cub here, and there could be some good value in play on Cub.
I completely agree, and I'm really, really glad that you mentioned the live betting because I think that's a huge factor here that they just, if you can live bet, we expect Pineda to win the first round. Absolutely. He's going to come out like a bat out of hell, but if he doesn't get that finish, you're going to get an even bigger plus number on Cub. And like you said, he should absolutely take over. He should just be the more technical fighter in there. He should be able to outbox Pineda for the last 2 rounds. And Pineda has never won a decision. This guy has no capability of winning a decision. He throws big, wide hooks, and he throws 100% with everything looking to kill his opponent. And I've just got this crazy sense that if Shane Burgos, who set almost a record of 134 significant strikes on Cub Swanson, couldn't get him out of there by knockout, I don't know if Pineda is going to be the guy to do it. So I think this is a submission or bust spot for Daniel Pineda, and I think Cub Swanson by decision is a nice little look if you want to get a little extra value there on the dog line. But as long as money keeps on coming in on Pineda, we might have to fade him here.
Yeah, I'm definitely fading him. I already bet Cub once, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cub knocks him out. Just because Pineda, I could see a Pineda really gassing and Cub landing that big right hand late in round 3 and maybe getting him out of there.
Yep. I absolutely, I could see that as well. Now, Stomp, I do want to reply here to this, my friend. So you're talking about Cub Swanson being 0-4 before he beat Kron Gracie. Well, let me tell you, first off, the Kron Gracie decision was unanimous. He schooled that kid on the feet. Yes, his face didn't look too good for the wear for it, but he was absolutely the winner of that fight. The 4 fighters that he fought before that, Shane Burgos, who is knocking on the door of being a contender, much younger, ridiculous reach advantage. Renato Moicano, who's a guy that took him down and submitted him. Again, another guy who's a potential contender, much younger, much taller, much longer. Frankie the Answer Edgar, who's a legend. And then Brian Ortega, who's a submission wizard and a title challenger. Like, he's only losing to the absolute top of the division. Do you put Daniel Pineda in with that category of opponent? I don't.
No.
All right. So taking a look at Cub Swanson, maybe another dog play. And I got to tell you guys, I think dogs are barking on this card. I think there's a lot of inflated lines. I think there's a lot of recency bias. And I'm pretty upset, Matt, because the Dolce Lungiambula fight being off, I had a dog play on Dolce at plus 220.
Oh, nice. I had a big play on Felicia Torres at plus 105 against Angela Hill. And I'm pretty bummed out because I think that Torres is on a good run. And her style would have matched up well with Angela Hill. So
that would have been a really fun fight. Really fun fight.